Implementation of recommendations made by a vulnerability assessment to corruption of the Afghan education sector made by MEC in October 2017. Afghanistan has made quite significant progress since in 2001 when a few 100,000 students went to school. But today, about 9.2 million students are attending schools in the country. Okay. And also the same with the number of teachers and number of schools. 16,000 schools have been constructed since in 2001. 68% of all Afghan servants are working for MOE, which means 262,000 staff altogether, out of which 216,000 are teachers. So MOE makes the biggest civil servants employer in the country. And of course, achieving such a rapid expansion in a decade required all donors to invest a substantial amount of financial resources to the system. And not for all, but for some people, it resulted to think about corruption, to indulge in corrupt practices. And now corruption is an issue in the country, the second major issue in the country after security. But the good thing is that the problem and its importance and gravity has been realized by all of us, by all Afghans, including the Afghan government. If you look at the NESP, the issue has been emphasized as the second major. NESP is National Education Strategic Plan, the third one. It has been emphasized as the second major problem. But also, Ministry of Education and NESP commits itself to fight corruption and to restore public and donor confidence. This is something that the government has lost at the moment. But they want to restore people's faith in the system. MEC has identified...
Can you explain what MEC is?
MEC? Yeah, Monitoring and Evaluation Committee. Independent Anti-Corruption Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Committee. It's an independent authority asked by the government institutions to conduct vulnerability assessment to corruption. And they have done it this time for Ministry of Education. And they have come up with 113 recommendations. It's a lot. But today my focus is just on some of those recommendations made by MEC and steps taken to address those recommendations by Ministry of Education and all stakeholders. The first area that I'm going to talk about is the teacher appointments. Second is EMIs, Education Management Information System, school curriculum, the scope and size of the MOE structure, the symbolic role of school shuras, school construction, textbooks printing and distributions. These are the major areas identified as being prone, vulnerable to corruption. Well, MEC released its report in 2017, after the study was done. And the good thing about the government is they have been welcoming to the MEC findings, especially His Excellency the President himself. He and his staff has been open to the findings. They embraced it, basically. And they have made some quick actions. One of those is His Excellency President has declared this year and next year as education support years. And he himself took the lead on the reform of education sector in the country. So he has been quite serious about the issue. And also based on the President's instruction, MEC formed a follow-up committee, a follow-up team to monitor progress on quarterly basis with both stakeholders. And when I'm talking about stakeholders, it includes everyone, including development partners. So far, 2 quarterly reports have been released by MEC. Also, MOE leadership made a public statement committing themselves to conduct a sector-wide reform in the country and their fight against corruption. Also, Ministry has established an education quality committee with 3 working groups. Each one of them is focused on quality, access, and education management. And the good thing is that SCA is attending on regular basis meetings of this important quality assurance committee on bi-monthly basis. Also, MOE assigned 34 focal points to report progress on MEC recommendations. And the progress, if you look at the reports, they seem to be a bit slow, but substantial, especially in some major areas. And also, MOE developed a related set of guidelines on restructuring the ministry. So these were actions taken by the country and MOE leadership. Now coming back to the first area, which is the teachers' appointment and capacity. MEC has been critical about teachers' appointment. So it has been an area mostly prone to corruption in the country. MEC reported that teachers are appointed on the basis of nepotism, influence, and bribing, and not on the basis of merit. Also, MEC reported that law enforcement entities are not strong enough to persecute perpetrators of corruption. And also MEC recommended that the responsibility should be shifted to an independent authority. However, His Excellency President was not in agreement with MEC to create a new entity, and still he ordered to shift the responsibility for teachers' appointment to the Civil Service Commission. And now Civil Service Commission has the overall responsibility for the recruitment of teachers in the country. What Civil Service Commission did? They brought transparency measures to the process. By what? By announcing all teaching positions on their website, by receiving applications online from the candidates, by shortlisting list of candidates on their website. So it has been quite transparent. And also the responsibility for the teachers' recruitment test was shifted to Ministry of Higher Education. And they are using a biometric system to make sure that the actual candidates are on the test administration side. And they're using multiple choice questions. So easy to mark their result, their papers. And also part of the responsibility remained with Ministry of Education. And it's basically about testing teachers, candidates, educational documents. And Ministry of Public Health to make sure they're healthy enough to teach, and also law enforcement entities to check their backgrounds in terms of their background simply. And also Ministry of Education made a significant step in women's participation. They allocated half of 8,000 teaching positions to female candidates. And also they allocated 17 PED deputy director positions to female candidates. So women's participation also has been increased. And also regarding teachers' capacity, Ministry of Education signed a contract with Ministry of Higher Education to upgrade teachers' education level to a bachelor degree. And also they are in the process to sign another agreement with Ministry of Higher Education to provide more practicum experience for teacher trainees. And for the first time, annual appraisal of teachers happened last year, and it included almost 30,000 teachers. And this has been part of the MEC's recommendation. The second major area that I'm going to focus is the EMIs and discrepancy in data. I think those who are involved in education sector in Afghanistan, they know that there is discrepancy in data provided by different departments of Ministry of Education. If you go to the HR department, they will give you one sort of data. If you go to the payroll department, they will give you something different. And if you go to EMIs, they will give you something different. So now MEC has recommended to integrate all these data into one database instead of having different data in different places. And currently, CBA, a project funded by USAID, working on it to develop something integrated. And also, they have developed a guideline for data collection, and they have trained EMIs staff on how to collect data, how to report, and how to document data. And also, if you go to the ministry's website, you will see that the data set for 2017 has been uploaded on their website. And everyone who's going to have access to data, now it's accessible. And also, for verification of data, EMIS has planned to conduct verification of data in 5% of schools. And it's going to be part of the ministry's culture to go outside and to make sure data entries in EMIS is correct. And twice a year, at the beginning of the educational year, and at the end, they will go and check in 20% of schools. At the moment, they are focusing on 5% of schools. And again, the third area prone to corruption identified by MEC is the overloaded school curriculum. Believe me, I've looked at the textbooks, and they are so heavy in terms of content. And I feel sorry for children carrying all those books every day to school and bring them back home. It is a lot, and it's totally not manageable. An educational year of 20 weeks, expecting a teacher to deliver such a content-heavy curriculum, it is just impossible. And the good thing is that this also has been realized as an important issue to be reformed by the Ministry of Education. And if you look at the theme 1 of National Education Strategic Plan, they're hoping to have students with knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values to be productive, healthy, and responsible citizens. But how this could be possible with the current curriculum? The curriculum has to be changed. If you look at the current curriculum, you will see 8 areas that the curriculum is focused on: Islamic studies, languages, mathematics, natural sciences, social sciences, life skills, arts, practical work, and technological education, and physical education, 8. And then these 8 areas are divided into sub-areas for particular grades, into subjects. So it's an overloaded curriculum. And what MEC recommended the ministry to reduce the curriculum by 50% to make it half of what is existed now. What happened after? Curriculum was reviewed, and stakeholders' ideas were sought all over the country with the help of UNESCO. And a new curriculum framework was put together by UNESCO. And the new curriculum framework has reduced number of subjects, as it could be seen, for grade 1 to 3 from 6 subjects to 3, it's half. For grade 4 to 6, from 14 to 6. For grade 7 to 9, from 17 to 7. And for grade 10 to 12, from 15 to 12. Now, when this is going to be implemented? It will be implemented, hopefully, by 2020. By implementation, I mean that textbooks based on the new curriculum framework will be put together and distributed across the country. Now we are in 2018, 19, 20, 2 years ahead of us. And also, based on the new framework, the second step was taken, and it was about developing competencies and syllabuses. And also, a coordination committee is going to be established between teacher training colleges, between MOE curriculum department, and education faculties to make sure all these 3 curriculums are in alignment. It's funny if they're not in alignment. And right now, they're not in alignment. And also the fourth recommendation made by MEC was the size and scope of the ministry. I used to work for the Ministry of Education. It is very complex with too many departments. Really, really hard to get hold of it and really hard to know each department with their duties and things they're doing. So MEC has recommended Ministry of Education to get reduced in size and scope. And they have identified several functions to be removed from the ministry. And those are teachers' appointment, teacher training colleges, the building of schools, TEVET, and monitoring and evaluation. And also they have particularly recommended that TEVET is technical vocational education, to become an autonomous entity, not just to reduce the size and scope of the MOE, but also to better meet the labor market needs. What happened after MEC made these recommendations? MOE has developed and finalized a detailed reform plan and concept notes for restructuring the ministry. And accordingly, the responsibility for construction of school has been shifted to Ministry of Rural Rehabilitation for rural settings, and for urban settings to Ministry of Urban Development. Yes, thank you. And also, TEVET has been moved from MOE structure and repositioned under an independent technical and vocational education and training board. And also, teachers' appointment, as I said before, has been shifted to Civil Service Commission. So it's a lot, it's huge. Though, you know. And also, the next area I'm going to talk about is the symbolic role of school shuras. Sometimes they call it ghost shuras. Because if you go to rural areas, and even in cities, shuras on paper, they know that they have a school shura, but if those shuras are functional, nobody knows about it. And typically, school shuras have been more effective in urban settings, like in cities. Last year, Kabul school management shuras contributed about 50 million AFs to construction of schools, a provision of textbooks, etc. But in rural settings, most of the shura members, as we all know, are illiterate, and of course, we can't expect them to contribute, let alone to go and monitor quality of service delivery in their schools. And even school principals, they struggle to relate to their communities. There is a gap between the principal and communities, and supporting their teachers, guiding them, and supporting them. Shura's contribution so far has been in repairing schools, building yards and toilets, and equipping schools. But what happened after? Ministry of Education has been able to revise its term of reference for school management shuras. The document is there, but there is no assurance if the document has been disseminated to school shuras, and if the document is going to be used effectively by school shuras. Again, USAID's contribution. CBA, a USAID funded project, now working in 5 provinces to create local oversight mechanisms at provincial level, as well as to support school management shuras in rural settings. I have a friend working for them, so I went to him and I asked about all these, and he provided me with an update. School construction is another major area that has been shifted from Ministry of Education to MRRD and MOUD. And also, what happened, a detailed section on anti-corruption procurement measures was included in the finalized MOE reform plan, so it's in there. And also, MOE leadership has assigned a team to support procurement department to speed up their processes, as well as to ensure transparency in what they are doing. Textbooks printing and distribution. This is also a major area prone to corruption identified by MEC. In 2009, Ministry of Education revised its curriculum, and the curriculum revised was for grades 1 to 9. New textbooks and teacher guides printed based on the curriculum revised in 2009. However, though with support of USAID and the NIDA, Danish government, and World Bank, textbooks have been printed, so lots of money put into that process. But still, if you go to schools, most of the students, they don't have textbooks, and they buy textbooks from the market. And books that they are getting from the bazaar, books are with good quality, but what they receive from their schools, they're black and white usually. But if you go to the market, you'll find textbooks of good quality and full color. And if you go to a classroom, from my personal experience, I could say that 3 students were sharing a single book. And the books, of course, they have lots of typo errors and difficulties in their content. But the sad thing is that Ministry of Education did not take any action on the textbooks reform. That means that MEC recommended Ministry of Education to think about some market solutions for the textbooks, to let private sector do it. But what happened, they did not come up with anything, and their plan is to put together something, and they have a deadline for 6 months to report back to MEC. I'm not sure if they're going to take any action on textbooks printing and distribution, by the way. Internal control and audit. There is an MOE internal audit in the ministry, but it's not strong enough to deter the corrupt practices. And also about external oversight mechanism, it's just the Supreme Audit Office, which has not been very effective. Again, CBA USAID funded project has developed an inclusive audit manual for the internal audit staff, and they have trained their staff on the manual. And the manual is to help them follow corrupt practices. Also, CBA is working with Ministry of Education to reform their budget planning and execution at both central and provincial level. And also there has been a change in the payroll cleaning. USAID asked CBA to conduct a study in 5 provinces and see if people who are on the payroll, on MOE payroll, they are physically existed. 40,000 staff have been checked, and out of 40,000, 1,200 staff found it to be ghost employees. So if they continue, I'm sure they'll find some more people. And the MOE staff code of conduct, it's all about behavior. If people's behavior has not changed, that means that nothing will change. So Ministry of Education put together a code of conduct for their staff to ensure equity, integrity, right to education, accountability, and trust. And however, nobody knows, staff members in MOE, about this code of conduct. It has to be disseminated, and people have to be trained on it. And also, it has to be made public. It has to be made public, and people, they have every right to know about it, but nobody knows about it again. And a system of accountability is in place in the ministry, which is about punishments and rewards, but it has not been applied consistently and widespread in the country. For some people, they apply it. For some people, they do not. Again, it's about nepotism, liking someone and hating someone. I think it's finished. Thank you for the attention. Now, any questions?
Yeah, please. I'm sure there will be.
The education department staff go out and inspect and monitor the schools as they should.
Can you please stand up?
Okay. I wonder if the provincial departments of education do their proper inspections of the schools as they should. we have had problems in the past to get them along on bumpy roads. They were not too keen to do that. And second, when you change the curricula, considering the normal with no qualifications, are they new curricula and properly teach it, where subject knowledge and all that?
Yes, it's a question that okay. Well, it has been a problem, you know. Teachers, they all need to be trained on how to deliver the curriculum, but they have not been trained so far. And there's lack of coordination between the curriculum department and teachers' education department. So they have to work together. Otherwise, it's about teachers who are implementing the curriculum within the classroom. If they don't know well about it and if they lack content knowledge, then how they are going to deliver it. So that's a problem. But MEC also has recommended, ministry, both departments to be working together and in coordination. But the good thing is both departments are working under one deputy minister. So if the leadership is good enough, he would be able to bring them together and ask them to work together. Not ask them, but instruct them to work together. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So, yeah, and regarding your first question, which is about school monitoring by academic supervisors, the guy who is leading the department, I know him. I think he's good enough, and he's trying to do something. You know, but of course, it's a major issue. They know how important the issue is. And it's again about lack of funding. Mostly monitors, they don't get enough money to travel and monitor all those schools. And also they've not been trained enough on how to monitor service delivery. So it's very important for them to learn how to monitor quality of education rather than just counting and seeing, though there are also important aspects of education to make sure students are sitting under a roof, it's in a good condition, etc. But when it comes to quality of education, no, monitors, they have not been trained on how to monitor for quality.
Please.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. It seems like there's a lot that is being done, but I would like to hear some more about the students' role in the education, because I didn't hear so much about it now, and since I've been working as a student representative for a long time, I know that students are crucial in order to actually provide a good quality education. So I would like to hear about how is the students or pupils involved in the shape of the curriculums, how are they involved in the evaluation of education? Is there anything we can work more on in that areas? Do you know anything about this?
Well, this was also my question when I was looking at both reports and at the MEC report itself. There's just something mentioned about students' participation, but it's not enough, to be honest. But what's mentioned about parents it has been mentioned that they have less knowledge of schooling and school management. So parents also, they're not able to keep an eye on the school management, so let alone to think about students. But this is a new area for us, for our country. We have to explore more about this and see how this could be working in our context. Yes, students, they do not have a say. You're right, they are the end users of our products, and they have every right here to have a voice in that.
Yes. It's both about democracy, of course, and the right to represent themselves, but it's also about that research shows that the quality actually increases a lot the more you involve the students in the education. So, for example, there is an institution in Uppsala University which is very progressive. It's called SEMUS, and they implement a way of involving the students that is called active student participation, where the students is also the teachers in the education. That's very progressive.
That's very progressive.
Yeah,
I agree.
that does it in that way. But they have shown that the students are capable of taking on this role and helping out and teach the other students. They also feel more ownership over the education and stronger commitment. The grades increase and all of this stuff. So maybe not going so far, but at least taking some steps to further involve the students would be increasing the quality a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But this MAKE was separate studies conducted before MAKE, and it was totally focused on how to improve learning outcomes. And when we talk about learning outcomes, then students' role actually comes in. So it was more about a comprehensive analysis of MOE as an institution, how it's functioning, rather than going into more detail about improving learning outcomes in schools. Yes, but personally, I'm very much interested to know how students could participate in their education. Yeah.
There are a friend from Sundsvall there.
Yeah, first of all,
Yes.
really nice to see you here.
Thank you.
You talked about corruption generally in the Afghan government, but and the Ministry of Education is one of the corrupted
Yes.
ministries, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the low or level that are corrupted; it's the leadership.
Unfortunately,
right?
yeah.
And well, first of all, if it's by this much corruption, how can we trust the data? I just wanted to know, because can we give us a reason to trust the data?
I agree with you, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yeah.
one more question.
Mm-hmm.
What actions are taken to counter corruption in the leadership? Because it's the ministers that give the projects to the family members or to other private trustees, and they are hiring the subcontractor,
Right.
and the outcome is very, very in a very low quality, just to how can you trust your data, the data you provided, and what actions are taken?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was also curious to know if there's any evidence to see really these things are happening in the Ministry of Education. But then I came across with something mentioned by MEC that they've been also curious about this. And what they did, they went to the site, and if the ministry was claiming that they have revised School Shura's term of reference, they went to the site and saw that document is in place. They went through these documents and they did checks in the ministry, so they went everywhere. They collected, and the data that I'm talking about, they all come from the MEC quarterly reports. So they went to the site, they made sure that what they are saying is correct. But again, also myself, I'm doubting, So it's not easy to trust, and I'm not trusting them either. But in terms of leadership, this MEC was the report, the vulnerability assessment to corruption was conducted based on a request coming from the former Minister for Education. So this was not something, this is not something happened just, out of nowhere, but somebody asked them, Ministry of Education leadership, asked MEC to come and conduct this study for them. So it seems that they are quite interested to fight corruption. But again, who knows, this is something on paper. And they've taken some action, as we could see. They've shifted so many responsibilities to other entities, and they are trying hard. But again, what I'm also curious about and doubtful is that I used to work for them, and I know it's the same people at mid-level management. And sometimes I think, I'm doubting, if, he was my colleague, is he going to do that? Oh, she was my colleague, is she going to do that? Sometimes I think of myself and I think, maybe he or she has changed. But we never know, But these major things are happening after all.
Varis, and then Henrik. I think these are the two last questions. No?
Okay, thank you, Madam Farahnaz.
Thank you.
For the interesting presentation and enlightening us about one of the core issues in Afghanistan. Yes. Okay. I would like you to elaborate on the point where it was written even in your presentation that the president has declared the year 1397 and 98 as an education year. What does that mean? First, and second, it's about the national budget. In our national budget, what percentage is allocated in the education sector? And then in the education sector, we have different levels: the primary, the middle, and also the higher education. And then within that, what percentage is allocated for the women and girls' education, and also the men? If you have the data, of course, it would be really interesting to share it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. His Excellency, the President declared this year, next year as education support years. That's fine. And what he has done in reality, he has taken the lead on the reform. So he has instructed MEC to form a committee, to form a follow-up committee, and make his reporting back to His Excellency the President. He's an individual like any of us, and all he could do, he could do this much. So he needs to have a team, a bigger team, to work with him and make follow-up on everything. But poor guy, he himself is very much interested to work for the country and to implement reform, and reform in particular education sector. Regarding your second question, I'm not sure about the budget, but what I could say is $60 allocated per student each year. And then the data has not been segregated by gender to know exactly what portion will go to girls and what portion will go to boys. But we know about the overall number of students segregated by gender, by boys and girls, but it's just $60. And you could imagine, when I was studying in Australia, I asked about their education budget. And someone told me that $10,000 is allocated per student. And then I was thinking about the product of $10,000 and $60 at the end. Of course, human beings living in the third world countries in terms of education, knowledge, skills, they must be behind. They must be lagging behind. With $60, what could you do? You can't do more than this.
It's the same for everyone, right?
It's the same for everyone, yeah. The curriculum is a national curriculum, system is national. The same thing is applied to almost everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Henrik.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I will limit myself to one question, although I have many. I was thinking about the reforms or the recommendations you mentioned. I was interested in hearing a bit more on the implementation, because all of these recommendations are highly commendable and probably very good for education system. But on the implementation of these, especially for organizations like ourselves interested in the education sector, what can we learn and what can we contribute with to these reforms? Because it would be interesting for me, also new to these organizations, to hear more. How can we promote and make sure that the implementation will work?
Yes. I'm trying to answer to your question to the end. Yeah, it's a big question. What SC is doing, I used to work for SC as head of education program in 2014, and SC has been quite active. And now, when Ministry of Education established this quality reform committee, SC has been active, and they send their representatives on bi-monthly basis to attend those meetings. So we are helping the ministry to reform education sector. But then, what was your second question? I just had it in my mind. But
How we can contribute?
Yes, how we can contribute. When I was reading these reports, I was thinking about our contribution, my contribution as an individual, and I'll be joining ESA again in mid-January next year. I was thinking how ESA could contribute. And then what you said before, it was about students' participation. That was something coming to my mind. So how could we make sure students are contributing to reforming the sector? But then I was thinking how this could be done, what grades should be our target groups to participate? Is it going to be something applied across all grades from grade 1 to grade 12? Yes. Do we think about voice of a child, who's sitting at grade 1? Is he or she has a voice or not? If she or he has, what level of contribution he or she could make? So this is an area that I'm particularly interested in, and if FSA could do anything about it, I'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you very much.